This is the Authority Company Podcast, conversations with leaders that are building the future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and today I'm joined by Cliff Nonnenmacher, CEO and co-founder of Franocity, and co-author of Beyond the Brand, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Fearless Franchising. Cliff brings more than 25 years of experience in franchising and finance. He wrote the book with his business partner, Justin Guevara, Franocity's president, and a former franchisee and corporate executive who's guided hundreds of aspiring owners to find the right fit. Cliff Nonnenmacher, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
I'm doing great, Joe. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
You're very welcome. And so the first thing I want to talk about is in your book is because I don't understand people like you. Okay. You were an entrepreneur from a very early age. The fact that you were selling golf balls at 8 years old. And I often joke, and it's kind of funny that I work in, business media. I don't understand the brains of entrepreneurs. I think it's like psychotic what you people do. Right. But so I never had Cliff. I was the opposite of you. I did not have the lemonade stand. I didn't sell, I didn't sell cookies or anything like that. I just couldn't wrap my brain around that. You, on the other hand, golf balls at 9. Tell me about that.
Golf balls at 8, 9.
Yeah. Yes.
I actually don't remember how I moved. So I moved to Great River, which is my, where I grew up when I was 6. And I'm pretty sure very quickly after that, my mom will probably tell you 8, 9. So yes, the lemonade stand, it's like, okay, like everyone did that, even though you're saying you didn't do it. Like I felt like that was kind of a normal thing.
Right.
We painted seashells and we sold them. Like going into the woods and walking into country clubs with clam rakes and raking golf balls out of ponds with telescopic poles. I was barely strong enough. And the older I got, the wider the rake would be, right? So I started with a little clam rake, maybe 4 teeth on it, right? Because you're digging into the ground. And as I got stronger, it became a longer pole and it became a wider net, so a wider cage so that I could rake more balls and collect as much as I possibly could in the shortest amount of time. I absolutely loved it. I've been fascinated by self-employment my entire life, never wavered from it. I've been really obsessed with making money at the youngest age. I don't know why. I think you're right. I've listened to some of your other episodes where it's like, is this in your DNA? Is it like indelibly inherited in you? Are you born this way? Is it taught? Like, can you teach it? I think you can teach it because if you think about franchising, it's like, look, I'm a displaced executive. You could teach it for sure. But I do believe that some of the most brilliant visionaries like the Elon Musk, the Steve Jobs, and, all these guys, I think that, they're just born with vision and they are the truest sense of an entrepreneur, which is a disruptor, someone who innovated, someone who created, right? Someone who invented, where in franchising, I could just cut a check, buy a brand, right? Have an undying devotion to win and follow the model. I don't need to be a visionary. So yeah, man, I started very, very young. I'm proud of that. And I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah. No, trust me, as you probably know, I bring this up a lot with my guests because I'm fascinated by it because I'm always curious, like, I piss off my wife. Like, I will talk about politics at a party if someone is there that has a different set of beliefs than I do, just because I want to know why. I want to get into why. And so when people ask me, like, what is it with you and entrepreneurship and why don't you get it? It's because, I grew up in an immigrant family. We were always like the idea of like, you work for the man, you get the check every 2 weeks, and then you provide for your family. And if you're good at your job, that you'll get paid more. and if you're really good at that job, you'll move up into another position. So I always believed in that sort of linear track. And as a card carrying Gen Xer, Cliff, it's even more so of just like get a job out of college, work there for 30 years and die. You know what I mean? So it's like, I've always had that sort of linear path. And I'm sure with you,
I grew up that way, quite
really
frankly. I totally agree with you. And I grew up that way. I am also a Gen Xer and I was raised by baby boomers and that was kind of the thing, right? Get a job, manage risk, never compromise your roof, your home, your safety, your security. Yeah, take the path of least resistance, which is something you've said, and, kind of manage risk accordingly. I'm the opposite. I feel like you have to speculate to accumulate wealth and you have to put it on the line. And I think that's what separates the country, 99% versus the 1% that are taking these crazy risks, right? You're either trading time for money, you're trading money for time. I mean, at any event, we're trading something, right? You're giving up I'm giving up a lifelong annuity called a pension. Like, I saw it. I was raised by a New York police officer, Nassau County police officer who became a detective over about 30 years on the force. And of course, you could see the structure, the benefits of being in a municipality or working for state, local government. You could see the pension for the remainder of his life, right? And the medical benefits for the remainder of his life. Like, that's hard to go against.
Yes.
If
Yeah.
you think about it, it's like you're gonna give all that up to see if you could become successful. It's like, I'm willing to take that chance.
Yeah. No, it's funny they say that because, like, if you probably said the word pension to someone under 30, Cliff, they'll be like, "What's a pension?"
That's
And then you
right.
have to, like, explain,
Right.
well, and, like, the retirement fund before there was 401(k)s and IRAs and stuff like that.
True.
So, like, most people don't understand that, and I get why pensions kinda went away. Obviously, there were government regulations that had something to do back in the early '80s, but then also the fact that a lot of these places that had pensions just couldn't afford it because essentially, like you
That's right.
said, you were paying employees for 30, 40 years after they left, and most companies were like, "Where's all our money going? Let's come up with a
That's
better
right.
way of doing this."
That's
So
right.
yes, so you did not choose that route, and
No.
so I think
And
if
I
we
lived in it, is my point. Like, I
yeah,
lived in it. Like, I saw the benefits of it, and I lived in that world. I saw my parents' life. But no, I went the other way, yeah.
and you use the word risk, and I think that sort of dovetails beautifully into the idea of franchising because not that, as you will say this, not that there's guarantees of success or anything like that, but there is this level of mitigated risks when you get into franchising because there's the S word that you guys use. And I know I'm talking to franchisees, the system. Like it's all about the system. And if you follow the
That's
system
right.
that's in place, your risk is mitigated. Obviously, anything can happen. There's no 100% guarantees. But tell me about that from the other side of things. So now you're on the side of helping people become franchisees. Tell me about that idea of how if you get into franchising, follow these systems, how the level of risk is slightly mitigated.
Yeah, well, great question. So, you're right, I started my career just being self-employed. I just hung a shingle and named the brand, right? Went out there and did my thing. But franchising is a unique methodology. It's basically saying you don't need to create anything. It's kind of a segue to what I was saying earlier. Like, you don't need to be a visionary. You don't need to be a disruptor. You don't need to think about creating an app with the next technology or the next great ad campaign, like a $5 footlong, right? You don't need to think of these things. What you need to do is execute and execute flawlessly. Well, what am I executing? Here is a proven business model. Here's the operations manual. I'm going to hand it to you. Go out there, follow the model, follow the system, to your point, right? And get to work. And believe it or not, as simple as that sounds,
We're
as simple
oversimplifying it, Cliff. I know.
we listen, we as simple as it sounds,
Yeah.
most people can't do it, which is crazy. I mean, it's as like the analogy I give people all the time, and that's like, well, wait a minute. I mean, that sounds pretty simple to just follow the model and create wealth and be successful. It's like
Yeah.
people can't stop for a stop sign. They can't stop for a red light. They can't buckle their seatbelt. People can't do basic things in life, let alone hand them a blueprint to a business model and say, go fight like hell to win. Go ahead and execute. You'll be successful. So, yes, we are oversimplifying it. And unfortunately, most people cannot follow the rules. They have to deviate. They lack discipline, they lack structure, they can't follow a proven system or process, and for that, they struggle or they fail, and this is why the failure rate in business is so high. You have to be insanely disciplined. You have to be nearly obsessive in your personality of wanting to be successful. Like, you just eat, sleep, and breathe this stuff and wanna win, and a lot of people don't have that in them. So, yeah, franchising, again, greatest greatest concept or methodology to create wealth in America without inventing anything, just following someone else's system.
That's great. And so I wonder because I think you've kind of alluded to the data points of like the entrepreneurial failure rate. I think it's something ridiculous. It's like 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 fail. Is there any data on franchising in terms of a success rate? I hate to put you on the spot, but is it
No,
like
yeah.
better than the typical like
It
entrepreneur failure rate?
it is absolutely better, right?
Okay.
So, as I call it, hanging your own shingle and doing your own thing and being independent comes with a tremendous amount of risk. It's you're alone, you're executing your own business, you're taking on massive risks, and yes, the failure rate is insanely high. I look for I think franchising is asymmetrical, and you'll hear me use that term a lot because that's my investment discipline. I've created wealth by looking at asymmetrical investments, and I think franchising is asymmetrical, and I believe that you have greater upside and limited downside risk. Well, why is it limited? Because I'm joining a brand with, let's say, 100, 200 franchises scattered across the country, not just buying a brand that's successful in the most affluent section of California, right, with discretionary income of, a quarter $250,000 a year, but I'm buying into a system that's doing really well in Tampa, they're doing well in Kansas, they're doing well in Colorado, they're doing well in sample sizes all across America, and now I'm deciding to buy this brand in, let's say, Salt Lake City, Utah. And it's like, for that, you're managing risk to the right of a decimal point because someone had already gone out there and what we call POC, that you have proof of concept. And proof of concept aligned with good unit economics, solid margins, right? A good, let's say, economic landscape, you're going to win. That's just the reality of it. And that's where you're managing your risk better. And people are funny because they'll focus on things like, I'm not paying a franchise fee. It's like, okay, like you're not gonna do it for that. It's almost like saying, like, "I'm not gonna get married. I don't wanna, like, compromise." It's like you say, like, things like that, and it's like, okay, you're probably not a fit for self-employment if you're gonna focus on a royalty or a one-time upfront payment, probably not a fit for you, and that's another thing that we do and talk about in the book. We talk people out of this all the time, right? Fit is very important. You have to have fit. The brand wants fit. You, the investor, want that fit. So yeah, I mean, it's proven, by the way, it's proven by Biz by Sell has aggregated data on just one metric, which is, can a franchise demand a premium over its independent counterpart? So let's just say independent pest control, franchise pest control, both doing 100,000 EBITDA. Who's getting a premium on that sale? The franchise is. They prove it.
Wow.
They aggregated all this data over years, and they've proven it. It's like a 1.5 time multiple more than the independent. That's significant when you talk about 100, 200, 300, a half a million in EBITDA, right? It's
Yeah.
significant. So yeah, your risk is reduced and your exit strategy, which no one talks about, right? No one talks about exit. It's always about buying a franchise. No one ever talks about how you create your wealth by exiting the franchise system and how you would get a multiple in EBITDA. And there are crazy stats, Joe, on selling. I interviewed the founder of a brand called Exit Factor, and it was startling that 85% of businesses will never find a buyer. That's just fucked up.
Wow.
85% of sellers of small businesses in America will never find a buyer. That's crazy. Think about that. That's how powerful franchising is as a methodology because you have an exit strategy.
Yeah, and there is some nuance to that about the small business trying to sell because a lot of the times the small business is the owner. So the idea of selling your business
That's
without
right.
you devalues it. But with a franchise, you're not selling you. Obviously, whatever you've done, you've executed the plan, but you are selling this franchise to someone else, which is completely different from a lot. And that's, speaking of small business owners, that is the biggest problem when they do not delegate or do not have a strong enough team around them. Because when it comes time to sell that thing, whatever it is, factory, store,
Yep.
retail, what
You
have you,
nailed it.
if you're the driving
You nailed it.
factor for its success, everyone's gonna be like, yeah, well, if you're not coming along, I have no interest in buying this.
You're exactly right. We teach this constantly to people. Anything that requires your day-to-day involvement is called a job. That is not a business, that's a job. Like, just try not any employee listening, like, try not to show up today and see what happens, right? It's like even one day, you will be called out immediately, right? You'll be threatened, you'll be called out, you'll be reached out by HR. Just one day, that is a job. We don't sell jobs to people, even though people do come to us and say, "Look, I just want to drive a van and be a handyman and have a simple life. I don't want employees." I get that. There's a place for everyone. But for the majority of our clients, they want their time back. They want their life back. They want a certain lifestyle. They want to retire uncompromised. And in order to do that, you must build a business that does not require your day-to-day involvement. You have to work on the business, not in the business. And they're two very different statements, right? I call people out all the time when I sell a franchise and I visit their business and I see them behind the counter. I'm like, I cannot believe you spent $500,000 on this brand and you are literally behind the counter putting tape on brown boxes. Like, this is a tragedy, a time management tragedy, really. And they put their head down. It's like I fell victim to it. Here I am doing a $15 an hour job. Like, I did everything that you taught me not to do. It's crazy. So and some of the worst advice we've ever been given, and again, raised by a baby boomer, and this was their go-to line: if you want something done right, you have to do it yourself. And it is the single worst advice you could give another human being, unless you're trying to suppress them and keep them poor and keep them, like, in a job. That's the advice you give someone. If you want something done right, do it yourself. I respectfully disagree with that advice, and it is the worst advice. You have to scale a business by leveraging other people. Joe, I'll share with you a quote that literally changed my life, and I love good quotes. It
Okay.
was John Paul Getty, and he said, "I would rather have 1% of 100 men than 100% of myself." And at that moment, it occurred to me, I can no longer, as a solopreneur, I can no longer operate the way I've been operating since I was a kid. I can't keep being the guy, the one person wearing all these different hats. I have to start believing in other people. I have to start grooming people, training people, holding people accountable, creating systems, protocol, processes, and KPIs. And at that moment, just changed my life.
That's awesome. And you talk about you said the word teach. And so this will kind of go right into the book here in terms of beyond the brand and the education gap that you hope to kind of fill. Because
That's
like you
right.
said, a lot of people may not know, like you mentioned, like, wait, I gotta pay a franchise fee. I mean, obviously you get into the nuts and bolts of it, but overarching, like, tell me about that gap in what people do not know about franchising. Are there a couple, like I said, you mentioned the fee. Are there other things that you hope people get from this book that, like, maybe they wouldn't have
Definitely.
known when it comes to franchising?
As you know, the book is titled Beyond the Brand, and I think that you just kind of nailed it in your question. If you think about people, if you think about the way people make decisions, like, they focus myopically usually on the wrong things, right? I mean, it's just natural for people to do that. It's no different than fear. Whatever you feared, you personally, and anyone listening, whatever you feared in the last, like, 2, 3 months, it did not happen. Something else happened, but what you're fearing did not happen. It's just a reality of fear. People are constantly worried about the unknown, the uncertainty, the future. And a lot of the book addresses fear. It just puts people in check. It puts that ego in check, because if people are truthful with themselves, being introspective and actually sat down, it's like, why are you not pursuing that business? Why are you not pursuing that promotion? Why are you not pursuing that career change? It always comes down to the ego, and the book discusses the ego in a very granular way, and the ego is always fighting, it's always defending, it's always fearful of the future, it always regrets the past. The ego is that self-identity that we've given ourselves, right? And if you really got in the head of a lot of people with fear, it's always, "What will people think? My children are watching me. What will my spouse think if I fail? What will my friends and family members think if I fail?" It never has anything to do with the business, its ability to scale, the pent up demand, unit economics, margin, labor model. Fears are never related to any of the things that actually matter when you're looking to invest in a business. It's always emotional, it's always ego, always. It's always fear, it's always being paralyzed. And what's crazy about fear is this, and I tell this to people: we we are the Steven Spielberg of making fearful movies in 4K that run 24/7 in our head. It's always, "I'm gonna fail, I'm gonna lose my house, I'm gonna lose all my money, I'm gonna lose my membership at the country club, I'm gonna" it's always all this stuff that goes through people's heads, and all we try and do with clients is say, "You have to interject positivity in your doom loop," right, of failing. And this is why people don't move forward. They're just paralyzed in fear and these constant thoughts of losing. And they never, ever just stop for a minute and say, what if I win? What if I get what if I get a bigger boat? Like, what if I get a bigger house? What if I get all of my time back? What if I'm with my children all the time at dance recitals and soccer games and the things that are important to me? What if I end up being a better spouse? What if I'm a better friend? What if I have more free time to do the things that I want to do? Nope. People doom scroll on the internet, right? And I tell people all the time, you'd be instantly happier getting off social media and getting away from doom scrolling because all it does is support catastrophic thinking. And for anyone listening, look into catastrophic thinking because we all suffer from it. Confirmation bias and catastrophic thinking. That's why when you jump on social media, it's going to show you all the shit that you want to see and nothing to the contrary because it knows what you want. You built your own algorithm. It knows your confirmation bias. It knows your catastrophic thinking. And it's just destroyed so many people and it's so sad. And you got to
Right.
break away from it. You have to allow that release of the grip that fear has on people. You have to release that grip, man.
And you do this with your day job, even though you don't have a job, but your day job at Franocity, which you co-founded with Justin Guevara, and you guys co-wrote the book. Let's get a little plug for Franocity. I mean, obviously, we want people to read the book, but tell me
Appreciate
about what
that.
you and Justin
Yeah.
do.
Freno the You're right. So Frenosity is our core business. So Frenosity, Justin Guevara and I co-founded it back in 2014, and we assist investors with identifying franchises, specifically franchises that align with their investment objectives, right? Their investment level, their income needs, their day-to-day involvement. Are you going to keep your career, do this on the side? Are you going to fully immerse yourself in it? We're going to choose a brand based upon your risk tolerance, not mine, yours. Your geography. Where do you live? Right? One minute someone's, as I said, in Miami, the next minute that they're in, Buckhead, Atlanta, or they're in somewhere in Long Island. Right? So it all matters. What are the demographics of that community and will it support the brand? So we just go through that. Do you like managing people? Like what industries do you like? What's your background? What are your skill sets? So we fully immerse ourselves in the client. We center the entire process around them. And in the end of that process, we determine here are, let's say, 5 brands that align perfectly with you and your investment objectives, whatever you said. Some people want to create a legacy for their children. They're not even doing it for them. They're doing it because they want to create a legacy. They found that being on the job isn't giving anything to the next generation, their children or grandchildren. Some people just want to secure a spouse's future. Some people want to create an annuity in retirement because pensions are dead and they know it. And they didn't do a good job creating a pension for themselves with a 401k because they had life its plain old self get in the way and stop them from contributing and maxing out the 401k. Right? A lot. I get that a lot where people just want to create a nice little income stream in retirement, but still be able to go on a cruise and come back to a business that didn't implode. So
That,
that's what we do, right? That's our
that,
core competency. We also help people become franchisors if they have a great idea and they want to do that. But again, our core competency is assisting investors with navigating this process with discipline, keyword discipline, right? With a strict adherence. And we created a 6-step process and walking the client through the due diligence phase, right? Engage, it's all in the book. Engage, educate, connect, evaluate, discover, decide. That's those 6 steps. And people are like, yeah, I could do this on my own. I'm like, no, you can't. No, you can't. And don't even think about doing it on your own.
well, Cliff, you beat me too because I wanted to get into the 6-step process, and I don't want to get into every 6 step. But what is the one of those that people most underestimate? Because I think when they come into it, they're obviously open to your ideas. They're
Mhm.
interested in this, and so that you break it down and you mention kind of like they sound easy on the surface, but which of those steps do you think people most underestimate?
That's a good question. Underestimate. I would first tell you that engagement is the first problem. People won't engage. They're perpetual searchers of information, right? It's like I've always said, like people are drowning in information and they're starving for knowledge, right? I mean, you could be on a podcast every minute of every day. You have news stations that are 24/7 spewing whatever they're spewing on every news channel. We're literally drowning in information and we're starving for knowledge. You have to engage in the process. Align yourself with someone that has your back, someone that you could trust, like us at Franocity. So engagement is a big issue because people lack trust. They don't know who to hitch their wagon onto. They don't know who to align themselves with to advise them. That's the biggest problem. I also think that due diligence is an issue. I go back to confirmation bias. I think a lot of people only want to speak to others that are going to confirm their suspicion that what they're doing is either right or wrong. It's like, don't do it. I knew it. I knew I shouldn't have done it. Yeah, I don't know if I would do that. AI is going to creep up on you and probably put you out of business. I agree. Like no one has any conviction anymore. Like it's unbelievable. No one can think for themselves. They have no conviction. Like it's just weird how I will be on the phone with people every day and they'll be like, I'm buying a blank. And I'll tell them, 5 reasons why I don't like that brand. And they instantly roll over like, I completely agree with you. What else do you have? Like that's the lack of conviction people have in their ideas and in business that you literally could talk them out of it in one phone call and they don't even know me. It's nuts. So
Wow.
yeah, it's nuts. So that's a very good question. I would have said to you that I would think that our steps are equally weighted. That I would if I had to answer your question, I would say that the due diligence phase, actually speaking to people, I'll tell you why I say that. One of the things I look for in a client is this. I want you, Joe, to call 3 people that are top performers, okay? I want you to call 3 people that are in the middle of the system in terms of revenue. Maybe they're not doing 1,000,000, they're doing a 500,000, okay? And then I want you to call 3 absolute losers, the failures in the system. What I find fascinating by this exercise is this. The client will come back to us and they'll spend all their time on either the winners or the losers. And it's interesting how people identify with a group, right? Because we all want to belong to something. So then I'll ask the client, I'd be like, you've spent a disproportionate amount of time discussing the losers in the system. Do you identify with losers? Is that like who you connect with? And it's like, I don't connect with losers. Well, then why didn't you spend any time associating yourself with the winners and saying, look, I spoke to people doing 1,000,000, 1,500,000, 2,000,000. Like they have my background, they have my view of life, they have my optics in business, they have my drive. Or you spent all your time on the losers. So I find that very interesting as an exercise. So I think that the due diligence, which would be step 4, evaluate, that would be the one that I would believe would be underrated.
Oh, great. Awesome. No, that's great. And is it safe to assume, since you're in the franchising world, is The Founder, the Michael Keaton movie, your favorite movie of all time? It's got to be top 5 in yours, right?
The Founder is that I like a lot of movies, but I The Founder, as it relates to franchising, I do
Yeah.
think is one of the best movies. Yeah.
And it's the reason I bring it up is because they kind of were, I don't know if you know more of this about this, but they kind of gave birth, the McDonald's, to the system. And it was funny when like they would go visit one location in the movie and they're like, "Oh yeah, we're making fried chicken in this location." And like, "No, no, 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 no. That's not how this works." Do problems like that still exist? Not the fact that people are
Definitely.
changing like the menu or something, but do problems like that exist where like someone will get into it, buy a franchise, and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do something a little different." Does
Yeah.
does does that still happen?
You know where it happens the most? It happens in systems that are very good at selling franchises, but not very good at supporting their franchisees and not very good at site visits and inspections, right? It's like anything in life. If there is a void, the void will be filled by the person standing in the void, right? So if you're a kid and you have no parenting, you set the tone, you make the rules. It's no different from a franchisee. It's like, you're just going to let me stand here on my own. You're not going to support me. You're not going to help me. I'm going to do things my way. So if you create a void in a franchise system, that void will be filled by the franchisee's ideas instead of them saying, no, I have an undying devotion to this brand and I'm following the leadership team. I'm following the executive team. I'm following the operations manual. And you're constantly visiting me. You're constantly adding value. You're always inspecting. You're always helping. You're looking at my labor as a percentage of revenue, and you're always adding just a ton of value on these operational visits. I drank the Kool-Aid on the brand. I'm executing the brand. But yes, it does happen. It happens in systems that are usually weak on support and operations.
Oh, that's good. Good. Well, it's not good to hear, but I was just that's funny that still we love bringing up over the history repeats itself. No matter how
Totally.
often we're on this planet, stuff that happened, 50, 60 years ago with the founding of McDonald's is still happening now, which is pretty remarkable.
Fra Joe,
Another thing I want
franchisees would sell hot dogs at McDonald's if McDonald's wasn't such a tightly run org they would do it. They can't
right.
help themselves but try and eke out another, X dollars of top line gross.
Yeah. And speaking of dollars, I know enough about franchising to be dangerous, but but forgive me if I'm wrong here, or please correct me. That the real like growth opportunities in terms of money and earning more is building on location. So like you start with one location, then you take the capital from that and you buy another one and then another one. That's where again, please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's where like the quote unquote big money is. Like you're not going to go buy a $1 million yacht with one Burger King location. Obviously it's gonna take
You
more than
nailed it.
that. So tell me about this idea of like, if you're just getting into it, starting with one and then building upon that.
Yeah, that's a great question and observation, and, no one really ever brings that up. Owning a single unit of anything, even McDonald's, you brought up McDonald's. I'll bet you McDonald's nets 250 max. That's it. The nets on some of these franchises, like those big ones that everybody wants, the fees are huge. The investments are massive. You're in the food space. Food by itself has a razor thin margin due to the insane labor, cost of goods, etc. So I'm not really excited about businesses like that with single digit margins. Look at Subway. They net like 35, 40 grand a year. That's it. That's
Yeah.
less than a 10% net margin to the bottom line. That's not attractive to me. I don't view that as asymmetrical. I don't view any of that as exciting. Back to your question. If you're going to own a single unit of anything, you're probably not going to create wealth, right? Just a single unit. Plus, because you own a single unit, the business really demands your time and attention too much. As you open up your second location, maybe it's a year from the opening of the first, now you have a manager and assistant manager. You open up your third location, you have another manager and assistant manager. Now you have layers of leadership and management within your organization. As much as everyone listening believes that you are now complicating your life with 3 locations, the opposite is true. You actually freed up your time. You have layers of people. No one is holding you hostage. No one employee says, "You need me more than I need you." If I leave, you're screwed. You own one location. I'm your one manager. If I leave, you're in trouble. Like, that means you're getting back from vacation and getting behind the counter, or
Right.
whatever you're doing, you're coming home. Life improves as you scale locations. Not enough people ask that question, but as the reality of franchising and in business, scale it 2, 3, 4 locations. Your life will improve. Your earnings, of course, will improve. But your layers of leadership and management will create a quality of life that you probably could never imagine having.
Well, I guess I'm just dangerous enough
It's a good
to
one.
feel figure this
That's a
out.
good
That's
one.
it. Wow.
It's something that is not spoken about enough, how life improves with multiple locations instead of just one.
Oh, that's good. And speaking of that, so I live in Charleston, South Carolina, and I guess there was a franchisee who owned all the Burger Kings here, and I don't know what happened to him, but if you come to Charleston, South Carolina, and you're a Burger King fan, you will not be able to enjoy the flame broiled grills of Burger King because they're all gone. There is not one here.
Unreal.
Like the remnants of it are here. When something like that happens, and by the way, Cliff, it's actually funny because like if I'm watching a football game, there's going to be a Burger King commercial, and that jingle comes on and says, "Have it your way." And I'm like, "Not
Not
here."
here. Right.
We not here. And so if you drive around the Charleston area, you will see like the hollowed out, like, Burger Kings do have
Wow.
a distinct look about them. And you're like, "Oh," and then my wife's like, "What happened?" I'm like, it was probably, and this is again me just knowing enough to be dangerous, being like, it was probably one guy who owned all the Burger Kings in here. Something went wrong, and then all of them shuttered. Tell me about, like, I obviously you don't know the situation, but tell me why something like that would happen.
Yeah, in that example, someone that owns that many units, I'm gonna guess that COVID crippled them temporarily,
Mm,
and they're just riddled in debt. And God, you have such great questions because people will reach out to me and be like, "Hey, I want to own a laundromat." I'm like, "Okay, you want to own a laundromat? What are you comfortable investing of your own capital? 100 grand. I'm like, okay, 100 grand on $1 million bill. People don't realize how much laundromats actually cost, right?
Wow.
30, 40 dryers, 30, 40 washing machines, impact fees. You're basically the size of a small condominium, right? If you look at a 30 unit condo, it's the same as a laundromat in a strip mall next to a Whole Foods. It's like well, you wouldn't see a laundromat next to a Whole Foods, but you get my point, right?
Yeah.
Next to a grocery store at a strip mall. So when you look at these investments, right? And I'll look at the client and go, so you're willing to borrow like 900 grand. Yeah. I go, you do understand that you will make no money, like none. And a lot of businesses over leverage themselves, right? And that, by the way, that's the purpose of EBITDA. EBITDA was created to determine, can this business kick off enough free cash flow to pay debt service repayment? That was the sole purpose from an accounting principle of the concept of EBITDA was, okay, EBITDA is what? 300 grand. What's our annual debt payment back to the VC firm? 200 grand. Okay, there's 100 grand left over, right? So you just look at that and say, okay, can it pay? I'm going to assume that this Burger King person, whoever it is with all these multiple units, they could have acquired it during COVID because there was a lot of sellers during COVID. They took on way too much debt. They took on the debt on a variable rate through the SBA many years ago. That rate really creeped up on them, which a lot of people don't factor. What are you going to do when interest rates go from 2% to 8%? What are you doing in that scenario when you're operating in a food space on a raise within margin? And the answer is clear. If rates creep up and we have the inability to pay, we're going to shutter the business. That's just bad business to me. It's bad forecasting. It's bad modeling. You're taking on too much leverage. I talk people out of that all the time. But Joe, I could sell twice the number of businesses a year if I had no soul and I just let people drive. I'm serious.
Yeah.
It's like you're a big boy, you're a big girl, you willing to take on that kind of debt? Sure. Because
Mm.
they don't know what they don't know. And I have to protect people from sometimes themselves and let them know that what you're doing is going to mortgage your future. You're trying to create a better life for you and your family. This decision, you literally just compromise or mortgage your entire future. You just don't know it yet.
And that's we kind of mentioned risk earlier, how it's mitigated when it comes to franchising, but the capital part, like if you just don't have enough capital to sustain and that business is not killing it, for lack of a better word, it's probably just like fait accompli that it's not going to work out, right?
Yeah, it's you have to be very, very careful. The US dollar, as we sit here today in 2025, the US dollar is absolutely worthless. It buys you nothing, but it is insanely expensive to borrow, right? Very expensive to borrow. And SBA rates are variable loans. Their repayment periods are short, 7 to 10 years. So you're taking a massive loan the size of a primary residence and you're breaking it and you're amortizing it over a 7 to 10-year period, not 30. These are big numbers. They're very, very big numbers. On a million, you could be looking at 13 to 15,000 a month. So these are big numbers that people don't understand, and it's our job to educate them and then bring them down a little bit and say, "What? Let's not look at a laundromat. Let's look at something that's $300,000." Right? This way, on that 100 grand example, Joe, it's like you want to invest 100 grand. Okay, well, 30% of 300,000 is 90,000. So why don't we use 90 of your 100? And now you're only borrowing only 70% from the SBA. And in that scenario, they actually now qualify for the underwriting requirements of an SBA loan because their cash injection is commensurate with the loan amount. And we educate people on that as well. I'm a former investment banker, as you know. So
Sounds like it.
helping people with the math and the funding piece and the liability piece is very helpful with my background because it helps me understand their assets, their liquidity and illiquidity, and finding pockets of money where we could do a deal while reducing their risk.
Do you have a set formula for that? I mean, your laundromat example, like you mentioned that the guy had 100K for something that would be a million. Where would, yeah, maybe let's talk super hypothetical. If this guy was dead set, I really want,
Yeah.
for whatever reason, it could be
Right.
anything, but what would you be comfortable with in them investing in for that, say, $1 million project? Like, what would make you sleep better at night that they're coming in with?
Great question. 3 to 500 would make me sleep better and
Okay.
closer to the 5. Yeah, because certain businesses just don't, if it's a 25-30% net, it's like, okay, I've got a huge net margin on this. When you start getting into the teens, any interest rate movement, as you well know, I mean, that could be the difference between being in the black and being in the red and literally going out of business. So I don't think enough people put emphasis on that. When you look at laundromat deals and you look at public storage deals, everyone wants to be in laundromats, car washes, and storage. These people have money. They have investors, right? They're not your average investor. They're coming to the table in some cases with seven figures of liquidity. And that's why they're successful, where the average person who says, I'm completely leveraged, I've got a FICO score of 680, right? I own a home, don't own a home. It's like, that's not your world. Storage, car washes, and laundromats are not for you. They're for other investors that have more liquidity. And again, that's what a good consultant would do, is to start directing them and being a good steward of their investment and being a good fiduciary, if you will, and helping people, like literally try and help them. And if you know, in my book, we talk about it. Brokers have commission breath. Every time they're speaking, it's just to jam someone in a deal so that they could get paid. And I hate that attitude. I do. You need to have more of a servant leadership type attitude. And you have to be able to give people advice, even if it compromises your income. And I've lived my life that way, right? Work like you don't need the money, love like you've never been hurt, dance like nobody's watching, that type of shit. Live your life that way. It's quite liberating.
I love that. I love that. That's so great. And it's so funny too with franchising. You mentioned all the things that can be franchisable. It's funny how many things are franchisable. Like it's crazy. Like I remember years ago, I was doing something in my radio days where I had CertaPro come over and paint like my apartment, and the guy comes in and just a regular guy, and I was like, and I said, oh, so do you want? He goes, yeah, I bought the franchise here in this part of New Jersey. I'm like, oh, I just thought it was all like
Right.
owned by the company and everything like that. And he told me that he went to this like like a franchising seminar where they kind of like s- sit like in a hotel ballroom and like all these potential franchisors come in and pitch their companies. And this guy never wasn't a painter and didn't know anything from Adam about painter, but he bought the franchise for this CertaPro painting service and he's doing very well in New Jersey. So tell me about some of these random franchise options out there, or maybe a couple of your favorite ones. I know you ran down a couple of the big ones like car washes and storage, but what are
Yeah,
a
they're
couple
not
out there that
right.
people wouldn't think?
Yeah, so those aren't my favorite, right? I don't do those deals because they're reserved for, let's say, your super affluent investor, the car washes and stuff like that. Plus, those are businesses that are highly fragmented. Like Public Storage is a publicly traded company. I mean, it's really hard to find an organized franchise concept in storage that's nationally recognized. The only nationally recognized car wash would be Mr. Clean, which is owned by Procter and Gamble, right? They also own Tide, which is their dry clean division. What I tend to focus on is, and again, title of the book is Beyond the Brand, is not so much the brands, but looking at like society, looking at trends, looking at demographic patterns, looking at what's happening with our birth rates and what's going on in America. We created in the book, you'll see 5 trends. And then the trends are titled, and we name them. One of them is the feminization of men, and it's not to be political. And let me explain what that means. What it means is that for the last 2 decades, minimum, we've shit on the trades. We told everyone to go to college, go into debt, go get a degree, and hope that you can monetize that degree, at least monetize it enough that you could pay the absurd amount of debt that you just put yourself into. But if a kid said 10, 20, even 30 years ago, I want to be a plumber, the family would immediately scold that individual and tell them, no, you're not, you're going to college. Meanwhile, I respectfully disagree with that. I think there is nothing more powerful than tradesmen in a country because we need our infrastructure. Yeah, you said it. You were on one of your pods. It's like we don't praise engineers enough. That was your quote. Like we
Oh
don't
yeah.
praise these people enough that are like you and I are on the 17th floor of a building. Like we need we need good iron workers, we need steel workers, we need glass, we need plumbers, we need all the trades. So the feminization of men means we feminized men, we told them to not go into the trades, and now no one can use tools. No one can use tools right now. So any business requiring the use of a tool, you're going to win. I'm telling you, you're going to win. HVAC, plumbing, electrical, roofing, siding, CertaPro painters. Do you know CertaPro does a 2 million a year in revenue, average revenue, 2 million? CertaPro, you brought it up.
Well, I know how much they charge, so I'm assuming they're doing okay.
The average franchisee of CertaPro Painter does $2 million a year. And for anyone listening, I said that in September of 2025. If you want to see the full earnings claim of any brand, you will get their FDD, franchise disclosure document, and you'll immediately go to item 19 if you want to see a written earnings claim based on what I just said, because I want to follow the FTC laws. We're highly regulated in this business. So I just gave a revenue number. Please consult with the FDD of CertaPro. As of today, the average revenue is 2.1 million. That is an enviable earnings claim. I don't know if you know this or not, but less than 6% of companies in America will ever reach a million in revenue. 1 million. This
Wow.
brand's doing that. That's a fact. Look it up. You
That's
could go
great.
look it up on AI. If of the 30, 40 million businesses in America, uh, only 4 to 6% will ever see a million in top line gross revenue in their lifetime. So it's quite a feather in your cap to be
Hmm.
part of an organization that's doing over a million a year. So back to trends, feminization of men. It also means testosterone therapy. Our T
Hmm.
levels have plummeted in the last decade. Our sperm count has plummeted in the last decade. Our ability to use tools and be self sufficient as men has plummeted, right? Franchises are backfilling all these voids created in that category. Number two is the silver tsunami. This country's aging. You just said you're Gen X, raised by baby boomers. There are 70 million baby boomers, and they're aging rapidly to the tune of 10,000 turning 70 every day in this country. So there's assisted living, there's mobility, there's wheelchairs, there's ramps, there's all sorts of services for the elderly population. Number three, we're aging, which means we want the pursuit of youth. We want to be youthful. We want anti aging. We want biohacking. We want red light therapy. We want peptides. We want hormone therapy. We want all this stuff, cold plunging, sensory deprivation, all this stuff matters. We want facials. We want to look tan. We want all this stuff. So the pursuit of youth is massive. It's manis, it's petties, it's eyelash lounges, it's all the stuff to feel and look good. Number four, since we're aging, not repopulating, we humanize pets and animals. That's the title for number four, the humanization of pets and animals. It's a $150 billion market in this country. Like we treat pets like children, and they are now officially part of the family. We strapped a dog to a tree in the 1970s and 80s. Then we let them sleep in the master bedroom bed by 2000s. We humanized them. And number five, and this is my opinion, I feel that public schools have failed miserably. I feel they have not prepared our youth for becoming adults and meaningful members, productive members of society. So anything in youth enrichment is going to help, whether it's science, technology, engineering, math, art, music, using your brain, creative thinking, whatever, youth enrichment, even tutoring. I do a ton of tutoring brands. We do a ton of like a mathnasium or things of that nature, even swimming. We do a ton of swimming brands, teaching people and children how to swim and a life skill and things, survival skill and things like that. So those are the five trends. As you can see, we don't say you need to buy CertaPro, you need to buy this brand. We focus on the trends. We focus on how to hedge AI disruption. We focus on those things, how to hedge, let's say, an economic condition, how to hedge recessions, housing crisis. We don't discuss any shiny new pennies. We want to show our clients things that have proven to weather housing crash, weather recessions, and come out the other side clean on COVID. Those are the brands we're showing to our clients so that they can mitigate risk.
That's awesome. That's good stuff. If you have eyeballs, you know the growth that Jersey Mike's has shown over the last decade. Are you bullish on that brand? Because I think it's like, like you said, we've seen that movie before. History repeats itself.
Yeah,
We saw Subway
that's
explode.
right.
I mean, at one point, what was the stat that there were more Subway locations than McDonald's across the globe?
That's
That's
right.
changed obviously over the last, 10, 15 years. Are you bullish on the way Jersey Mike's growth is going these days?
I do like Jersey. If you're gonna get involved in food, I like simple food, no cooking food. I don't like
Okay.
cooking food. I don't like white tablecloth food. I think again you have razor thin margins. I don't like businesses that operate on a razor thin margin. The unit economics of a Jersey, Mike, you're talking about $1 million AUV. So this brand is doing on average over a million a year, which by the way is two times greater than Subway. Think about that. Subway pioneered this eat fresh sub sandwich space, and only for a Jersey Mike's to say, we're going to 2x your average revenue per location. It's very impressive. So I do like the model. I like their growth. I like the unit economics. And I think that there could be, I mean, even a Firehouse Subs, there's some brands out there
Mm.
that do far more top line gross revenue, or as we'll say, the average unit volume per location than a Subway. I'm bearish on Subway. I think it's a crappy brand. I think it aligned themselves with crappy people. I think that their food is fake. I think their tuna isn't tuna. I think their cold cuts aren't cold cuts. I don't think their chicken's chicken. And this is my opinion. And some independent labs have supported this opinion. I think a lot of these franchises load up a ton of chemicals, endocrine disruptors in their food, and they need to be called out for it. This has to stop. Like we're just like the sickest people on the planet. It's ridiculous because we eat just shit food all day.
Yeah. Now
So
on the business side, I'm just curious on the business side of it. You mentioned the quality of Subway, and I think many a person could agree with you about what you just said. But like, what did they do wrong, and Jersey Mike do right, or vice versa, in terms of like that exponential like Xing of their business? Is there something business wise that
yeah,
they
it's a
did
good question.
outside of the quality?
That's a good question. So if you go back, franchise Subway was struggling, over a decade ago. And it was Jared that really saved the company, if you
Yeah.
will. It was Jared. More importantly to Jared was the $5 footlong, which, by the way, I completely disagree with naming your business the dollar store or a $5 footlong, because these ideas do not take into consideration inflation. And even the dollar store is closing and can't sell anything for a dollar, which is
Right.
just bizarre, right? Dollar Tree, dollar, it's like nonsense. They never forecasted that a dollar might not actually be worth a dollar anymore. It's
Right.
so stupid to me. Well, guess what? A $5 footlong made the same mistake. They basically told the world this meal is worth $5. Well, guess what happens when you try and charge 6 for it? No, it's worth 5. You even said it. It's a $5 footlong. You can't ask 7 for a $5 footlong. So the Achilles heel of Subway was aligning themselves with, which is now a criminal. Jared was in prison. The guy's got a ton of issues. That was a problem. The brains behind the operation, which Fred DeLuca, died, right? This is a privately held company. He was the tip of the spear. I spent a year working with him, by the way, in full disclosure. He's an
Okay.
absolute, he's a certified genius. He's a member of Mensa. What he built is remarkable. I don't want to shrink the success of Subway, right? What they've done, most brands will never achieve in their lifetime. And I think that Fred DeLuca is an absolute brilliant visionary businessman that built something very special. But you have to evolve. If the world is screaming GMO, get away from GMO. The menu must evolve. Your suppliers must evolve. You have to address the undertones, right, that are happening in your society. You can't just keep selling things that people are rejecting. So it's a combination of a perfect storm, overdevelopment. There was one Subway per 10,000 people in America, one per 10,000
Oh,
population. Yes, there was over 30, it's 300 million people. There was over 30,000 locations. So, do the math there. You overgrew your brand, and without really focusing on unit economics and making sure people are profitable, which each store is not. They only make 35, 40 grand a year net. This is not a successful net margin. They only do 4 or 500 grand in top line gross revenue. This isn't exactly a sexy story. This is a development story. This is I want one on every street corner story. This is not a brand saying I obsess over the success of my franchisees type story. Big
yeah.
difference.
Yeah, it's great. It's funny that you mentioned it because the importance of nuance there, because I think most people would probably automatically Netflix it because everyone's like, "Oh, the reason Blockbuster went out of business is because Netflix." I'm like, "No, you need to know that the company that owned Blockbuster was using Blockbuster as a piggy bank. It was basically just taking all the money out of Blockbuster, not growing the brand, growing the company. So, and then eventually streaming happened, so Blockbuster died and couldn't get a chance to jump into the streaming revolution. Same with Subway and Jersey Mike. People assume, oh, Jersey Mike came along and pardon the pun, ate Subway's lunch, but there's so much more to it, and you really have to look under the hood to find the truth to some of the successes and failures of these
Look at
companies.
Jimmy John's, same story. They do over a
Yeah.
million a year. Look at your I mean, it's like, why? Well, these are real cold cuts. We're really deli slicing it. We're getting back to the basics, right? Fresh bread. So yeah, it's a great question. A lot of people don't talk about, what happened. I mean, Subway is closing thousands of locations. Thousands. They were just bought by Rourke Capital. Rourke is a premier private equity firm.
Oh,
Okay, they're
so we all know what that means.
if you look up
Chop
Rourke,
it up.
they're
Chop it up.
yeah, well, right
Yeah.
now they're adding their other brands like Cinnabon and all these other brands and Auntie Anne's, and they're adding things to the menu of Subway. So Rourke is massive. They own a lot in the food space. I expect them to do a turnaround on the brand, and we'll see where we go from here.
All right, cool. Well, thank you for indulging me. And what did I put a button on the Subway thing? Did I put wasn't like the $5 footlong like a loss leader? Like they were literally losing money every time they sold a $5 footlong because it cost them more
Well, that's
or
what
something?
that was the point of saying, like, you can't
Yeah.
price something that doesn't actually add value to the franchisee. See, you're bringing up such an interesting point. Brands make money on gross revenue. Think about that. Subway sustains itself on charging a royalty on gross revenue. Well, where's the obsession to make sure that the franchisee is net profitable?
Yeah.
The $5 footlong was just not a profitable ad campaign. And it was created, most people do not know this. It was created by a franchisee that was failing in Fort Lauderdale, Florida.
They filled the gap that you
I
mentioned
actually
earlier.
that and it was a unapproved ad campaign with a massive banner flying outside the store that said $5 footlong, including tax.
Wow.
He lived in the same building as Fred DeLuca. Fred saw him in the elevator and asked him who approved it. But Fred, this is the genius of Fred. Fred said, I'm going to wait and see the outcome of that location based upon this ad campaign. And what Fred learned is that that store was growing at 30% and continue to grow. And it went from I'm going to shutter to I'm a thriving Subway. And that is how the $5 footlong became a national ad campaign. And that also reinforces something that I believe in franchising, which is when you join a franchise, you're leveraging collective intelligence. It wasn't corporate that usually comes up with great ideas. It's guys like you and I. It's the franchisees in the trenches that come up with the most brilliant ideas. Half of McDonald's menu is from guys like you and I, just franchisees, not from corporate.
That's great stuff. And if you want to learn more about it, the book is Beyond the Brand, Entrepreneur's Guide to Fearless Franchising. His name is Cliff Nonnenmacher. Cliff, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Thanks, Joe.
And that's going to do it for this episode. If you want to find out more information about Cliff, Justin, and our other amazing authors, go to theauthoritycompany.com.